What is your toxic relationship situation that you need advice on? Am I obligated to pay for my grandson's college? I plan to pay for my granddaughter's, but not my grandson. So I really need an unbiased opinion on this. I've two children, Anna and James, both in their mid-20s. Anna has a 3-year-old daughter, and every year on her birthday, in addition to gifts, my husband and I deposit money in her college fund. We intend to keep doing this, and by the time she's ready for college it should be all set. James has a son who just turned 1, and he is married to a woman I do not like. We'll call her Nicole. As a result of Nicole's boundaries and constant control, I don't feel very close to my grandson. I absolutely refuse to be manipulated, so I've taken a step back, and I'm very honest. I think she uses her child as a pawn, so I have a limited relationship with my grandson. I find Nicole very rude. She's implied that I'm not very intelligent because I grew up privileged. She's been very insulting to my husband, and he has no patience with her, which resulted in a screaming match at Thanksgiving, and she was asked to leave. She criticizes me for every little comment and says she doesn't feel comfortable with me babysitting. I don't care. That's her right. But then she calls me and asks for help with bills. I really can't deal with her hypocrisy. I did grow up very privileged, and she acts like it's wrong that I had everything handed to me by my father, and then has the audacity to ask me for money. The absolute vilest part of all of this is she yelled at me once that you'd probably sleep with Anna's husband to feel young again. I'm not sure if she's jealous because I actually like him, but that is a disgusting accusation. We did set our grandson a nice birthday gift, but we didn't open up an account like we did on our granddaughter's first birthday. Well, that was about a week ago, and James called the other day, clearly very uncomfortable, and wanted to know when we were planning on putting the first payment in the savings account. I told him that his son is not automatically entitled to money just because we chose to give it to our granddaughter. I was honest and told him that I don't like Nicole and that he knew marrying her was going to come with repercussions. He got very emotional, though that might have to do with the marital issues they've been having, and he accused me of favoring Anna. I don't love either of them over the other, but I am not going to get attached to a child they keep threatening not to let me see. So am I obligated to pay for my grandson's college? Is it wrong that I do not care if my adopted son wants nothing to do with his bio mom? My husband and I adopted our oldest son in 2016, and biologically he is my husband's nephew. His mom is my husband's sister. Anyway, she had been making poor life choices for quite some time, but it ultimately came to a head in 2014. When her drug usage caused her to lose all of her kids. She went to prison for a while, and when she got out and reached out to us, we asked our son if he wanted to talk to her. He's gonna be 18 at the end of this year. He was definitely old enough to understand and make the choice. He said yes, and they had phone and letter contact until about a year ago, when we finally let them meet in person, supervised. She was staying clean and generally doing good for herself for a while, to the point where my son was actually kinda proud of her. Then she got with a guy that is just terrible, and entered a downward spiral from there. She stopped trying to get a hold of my son frequently, if at all. He never talked to me about how it made him feel, and I never pushed it as he doesn't react positively to that sort of thing. Then Mother's Day rolled around. I hadn't expected him to say anything to me, seeing as how I'm not his bio mom and he knows it. He went out of his way to find me before I left for work. He was staying at his girlfriend's house the night before, told me Happy Mother's Day and gave me a huge hug. I thought it was awesome. I had a great day, and after I got home from work I had a text from his bio mom. Happy Mother's Day, tell, name, that I love him, have him call me sometime. She knows how to get a hold of him. She just chose not to contact him directly, and when I asked him if he told her Happy Mother's Day, he just said no. My husband is a little mad that I didn't prod him to tell her, and my parents told me well that's still his mom. But I don't see the need to make him solely responsible for maintaining a relationship he doesn't want in the first place. Am I the unreasonable one? I told my parents to fix their relationship, or don't come to my wedding. Was this wrong to do? My parents divorced 2-ish years ago. Short version is that Dad told Mom that he was having an affair with a co-worker, only for Mom to admit she was also having an affair. They're both so angry that the other person cheated on them and got mad about the other person's cheating when they were also cheating, that they can no longer be in the same room without a full-on screaming match. The divorce was drawn out over a year, and they both married their affair partners. The whole thing is a huge freaking mess. There's been a few events since the split where they had to be in the same room together, and so far all but one has ended in them causing a scene, and the one that didn't was because Dad got escorted out early. So now I'm engaged. I never thought I'd be one of those brides that talks about my big day and gets really emotional, but if they have a screaming match on my big day, I might burst into tears. So far the only thing we have booked is a venue, for August 2021. At this rate, given how my parents' relationship has deteriorated, both from the divorce and them remarrying. I cannot see my wedding day going off without drama from them. I talked to my fiance and a couple of friends, and I decided to get mom and dad on a Zoom call together. To give you an idea of how bad the relationship is, the second they saw each other they left the call and I had to beg them both to come back. I then said basically, and this is all paraphrasing, "Look, you've got 15 months until my wedding. I want you both there. In order for that to happen, you need to be in the same room without an argument. I don't want to have to eject my parents from my wedding, so if you can't play nice, neither of you are invited at all." They then began to agree for the first time in 2 years when they responded that it's not that simple and I can't ask them to do that, or set requirements for them attending their only daughter's wedding. I've responded that this isn't a massive request. They beg to differ, and this is on them to figure out, and if I can't trust them to be civil then they can come. My birthday is in June, and next year I'll have a small party for my 30th, and if they can be civil by my 30th, they can come to the wedding in about a year from then. Since telling them all this, I have had a barrage of texts/calls/messages from not only them, but all 3 of my brothers, too, all saying this is a dick move and I shouldn't be doing this to them. My brothers all agree that I shouldn't have to put up with it on my wedding day, but they all disagree with how I'm going about it by setting requirements and say that holding the threat of not seeing me get married over their heads is not the right way to go about this and I should have run it past them first. Am I the unreasonable one? Is it wrong that I made my mom cry by exposing a family secret? So I have a brother James and a sister-in-law Maggie. They are pretty unhappy in their marriage, but stay together for the kids. They both have a very strained relationship with my parents and as a result my other sister's kids are very obviously favored. This hurts James's kids, who are all in their late teens. The reason for this favoritism is an affair 19 years ago. My mom is pretty narcissistic and it got to the point that all 3 of her kids are sick of it. When James married Maggie my mom treated her like the daughter she never had. They were very playful in a kind of weird way. Like I remember one Christmas Maggie got drunk and had a little cake fight with my mom and put the cake down her dress. I guess my dad always wanted a threesome and my mom said no. But one night when James and Maggie were staying with them he went out and they were all drinking together. My mom and Maggie hooked up and my dad just watched. When James found out it was a crap show, but my parents showed zero remorse. The only reason he didn't go no contact was family money. We recently had a family dinner and James's kids were upset when they found out my parents were planning on taking the other grandkids to Aruba before the pandemic. I just couldn't take it anymore so I told them the reason my parents don't see them more. Maggie ran off. My mom bust into tears and my dad kicked me out of the house. So am I in the wrong? Am I the unreasonable one for refusing to tutor my brother's kids until he apologizes? I'm a teacher. I have qualifications in all core subjects, English, maths, science, and I teach primarily English at my school, as well as occasionally maths and science, and tutor in all of these subjects. My brother has always believed in those who can't teach, and my career has always been a hot button topic because he says that it's not that impressive and that it's not like you're going to change the world. His favorite critique is saying that I'm not a professional in my fields because I'm just a teacher. He also likes to brag about how he runs his own company and built it up himself, when it's actually a family business he inherited from our dad. He's smart, but always talks about how meaningless exams are as he only earned basic passing grades and now doesn't need anything he learned in school. And now my nephew, a 15-year-old taking his GCSEs next year, has just been informed of his predicted grades based on mock exams. His highest predicted grade is a 3, which is the equivalent of a D grade and technically categorized as a fail. And that's the highest. All of his other grades are predicted at 1 and 2, which are E, F, G, U grades. My brother is now nervous because it seriously looks like my nephew is going to fail all of his exams and have to resit GCSEs. His brother, age 12, has similar results. My nephews, having seen their mock results/predicted grades, didn't care at first because, like their dad said, I won't need them once I finish school. My brother has finally realized the gravity of the situation and his wife, my sister-in-law, has made him sit all 3 of his kids down and say you need your GCSEs, you need to do well in school. I'm going to ask Aunt OP to tutor you all. The youngest is bright, and she'll do fine without help. But the older 2 need help learning basic revision techniques, studying the material they need to know, and generally prepping for exams, with my older nephew being the more urgent case and the younger nephew having a few years to fix it. Both boys are currently anxious because my brother has told them that they will fail, and that where we are you have to have a minimum of a C in at least English and maths to get a job most of the time. My brother called me and explained their grades, what he told them, and asked when I can start. I said that I'd start as soon as he admitted he was wrong or apologized for making fun of my career. He then told me to go F myself and hung up. I've since received a call from my sister-in-law, who I've been friends with since before she and my brother got together, saying it was hard for him to ask for help, but wanting an apology is pushing it, and can't I just do this for my niece and nephews who need help without requiring my brother wound his pride further? Am I the unreasonable one for wanting an apology before I start? Update. Just to be clear, I do fully intend to tutor his kids, whether I get that apology or not. I wouldn't let the boys fail such important exams, and I believe my niece, who is 10, has the ability to pass the 11+ exam, which her brothers failed, and get into the school I teach at, which I want her to do because I think she would thrive here. I just went into this thinking it would be really nice to get some sort of apology from him, and that somehow escalated into me wounding his pride. So if it looks like I'll never get that apology, then I'll do it anyway. But if it looks like an apology is a possibility, then I'd like to hold out until I get it. About the money, I don't know about charging him because I have partial ownership in the family business despite not being involved in the actual running of the business, and due to the setup I get paid whenever he works, and even without my passive income taken into account I still get paid more by my school than he earns through the business. Am I the unreasonable one for saving child support money to give to our son as an adult? When I first had my son I spent child support on him directly, buying baby stuff and the like, but by the time he was 5 I had a stable job, was earning more than my ex, and was able to buy him whatever he needed. He's now 16, he's not spoilt, but he has everything he needs and then some. When I was able to afford everything myself I began putting the child support into a savings account, which I'm giving to our son when he's 18. The child support is £170 a month, or £2,040 a year, so the account is well over 20k right now, and no money has ever left it. A few months ago my son started getting anxious about university, as he'd planned to get a summer job this year to start saving up for uni. We're in England, so he's going through a student loans company, but the maintenance loan, meant to support himself, isn't much, and he wants to go into a career that would require a high-intensity course. So he wants to set some money aside now to use when he gets to uni. I hadn't given him the full picture of the account before now, but when I saw how nervous he was I pulled up my statement, and that reassured him a lot, and I explained where the money came from during our talk. He asked if his dad knew. I said no. I've not told my ex about the account because it's not his business. We don't have a great relationship. He was married when I met him, so his wife isn't exactly my biggest fan. I didn't know he was married at the time, and in general we don't talk much. My son and his father were on the phone earlier today, and at some point his father mentioned that he should be looking for a job and start saving up because he couldn't afford to help my son out financially when he was at university. My son then said he was going to look for a job for the experience, but it wasn't a huge concern due to the money I have saved, and when asked he gave a ballpark figure of how much there was. His father asked to speak to me and then asked me where I got that kind of money. I knew lying would be both stupid and useless, so I told the truth. My ex is furious, saying he has a wife and 3 other kids to support and he's been scrambling to pay for stuff for the rest of his family for years while I've been sitting on this fund the whole time, especially as it's kind of my fault he took a pay cut to minimum wage. I said it's child support for our son, so that's where it's going, and he said that he gave me that money to support our child, not to gather interest until he's an adult. He said his issue was that that money was meant to go directly to our son when he paid it, and instead I've been living off my own money, but continuing to let him pay child support that was so useless he won't get my child support as a child. I filled my boyfriend in on the talk and he said that the account was a good idea, but I probably should have run it by my ex first. So, am I the unreasonable one for saving child support for our son as an adult rather than spending it directly when he was a child? I got accepted into University of Virginia, but that doesn't matter because I'm his sister. I am the middle child of my family. My older brother is everyone's golden child who will be graduating this May from uni. So, for as long as I can remember, I have been known as his sister more than anything else. Most conversations that I've had with family are about him and his accomplishments and what I can do to either ride his coattails or stay in his shadow. So, I found out today that I got accepted into University of Virginia. This is a rather big deal for me, at least because I have been through so much trying to figure out my life after high school, rejection after rejection, all on top of learning disabilities and my psychologist, who was supposed to help me with that, ghosting me when I needed him most. The only people that were super excited for me was my mom, and her coworkers, and my older brother, which I'm slightly surprised by. Everyone else's reactions were pretty chill, teetering on very anticlimactic. But my grandfather, who needed to be yeeted off this planet 10 freaking years ago, for many reasons, was so anticlimactic, It was insulting. It was one of those fake ass oohs that adults say to a kid's bad drawing and a lazy congratulations. He said something about it being a pretty good school and in the same exact breath goes on to talk about my brother and ask me questions about him. Really? Freaking really? He did admit that he didn't know a lot about University of Virginia, but he didn't know a lot about where my brother went either. But still gave him a proper congrats, and that's the tea. He did call me back after looking it up, I guess, only to tell me that he thought the dorms looked weird. How do I manage my emotions about my toxic sister-in-law? I hope to get some kind of advice from folks who have been in my position. Sorry, long story, as I've probably held this in for a while. Lol. Some context: I've been married about 2 years. Dear husband's family unit, father-in-law, mother-in-law, 2 sister-in-law, is not super strong / close. Parents are divorced, and while we live in the same city we don't see them that often, except for special occasions, birthdays, Mother's / Father's Day, etc. They're generally okay toward me. I've not been mistreated in any way, but as with most in-law relationships, some tension is inevitable. I'll get to that. It didn't take long after dear husband and I started dating for me to realize that my older sister-in-law is an extremely negative person, and she is loud. Any topic that's on the table for casual discussion often quickly turns into a debate, to the point where we sometimes get stares from folks around us, if we're in a public setting like a restaurant. Now I'm all for healthy and friendly discussions, but I don't like confrontation, and her being consistently bitter, finding fault in everyone else's decisions / opinions, fiercely imposing her opinion on others does not sit well with me at all. Needless to say, I've never engaged in her rants. Dear husband, bless his heart, is a very patient and gentle man, and 99% of the time he ends up the one debating with her, using facts and trying hard to get her to see other POVs, obviously to no avail. Mind you, this can be very trivial issues. She once blew up because the restaurant we were at did not have as wide a variety of vegetarian options as she would have liked. The rest of us are non-vegetarians, and questioned why we picked this place. Doesn't matter that the location was discussed on the group chat days prior, with her approval. Other issues I have with her: not being able to hold down a job for 1 year, never offering to pay for any of our meals, yet requesting for seconds / thirds at dear husband / father-in-law's expense, always showing up late, are somewhat bothersome, which I guess also contributes to my general stance toward her. So, now with the pandemic, my country has recently lifted majority of the lockdown restrictions as the situation is improving. Obviously there are pros and cons as we've seen in other countries, but this was generally received positively given that we've been in lockdown for a couple of months now. Dear husband innocently brought this up in the group chat and, you guessed it, Operation Toxic Rant begins. It was just message after message after message of criticizing the decision, that asymptomatic folks are still transmitting, that vaccines are nowhere near the horizon, that the government has shady ulterior motives. I don't deny her points, they have truth, but what about the other considerations? Our economy, businesses going bust, folks losing their jobs, her own job security? She currently works in the entertainment field, so you would think she'd have that on her mind. And obviously strict measures at public areas are still in place: social distancing, temperature monitoring, limitations on max group size, etc. So it's not like people are gonna be running around like zombies out for flesh. This rant went on for a good 2 hours in the evening. No one responded to her and she continued throwing article links the following morning to prove her points. I've been able to ignore her shenanigans. It helps that I don't have to meet her that much. If you do a quick Google search on how to deal with toxic negativity, the general tips you see are pretty much what I've been doing. E.g. not getting sucked into it, ignoring her. The group chat is already on mute, so I really only look at it if I have to. But somehow this episode really got to me and I don't know how to shut out my emotions. I can't understand how someone can be so overbearingly negative about everything, and each time I think about it, it makes me really frustrated. Dear husband is great at compartmentalizing, and while he 100% agrees that his sis is impossible, I don't think he can empathize with how I feel right now. I don't blame him though. Anyone else has faced similar situations and have any advice to share? Subscribe and turn on the notification bell for more stories delivered to you. Thanks for listening. See you later.